My name is Heather Urschel Spear, and I am the director of the Writing and Tutoring Center at TCC. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about. And it always has been. I love talking about writing and helping people improve their writing. And then this year, in May, for the first time, I was one of the reviewers of the STARS Foundation scholarships. And so I read approximately 550 application essays or scholarship essays. And now I have a whole new way of seeing everything because I got to read so many. And for one, they were inspiring, amazing. And on another side, I saw room to help people write better and to showcase themselves better. So now I'm even more excited about this. We are going to be filmed. We are being filmed today. What's your name again? Yvonne is filming us because we want to be able to put this out on the internet or on our website so that other students who can't come to these workshops can also benefit. And also, you'll be able to access it if you want to remember something. So I might repeat your questions for you, so don't be annoyed by that. It's because I have the mic, and they won't be able to hear your questions. But you'll forget that he's there. I hope I do. I really do, especially since I have to carry this thing around. A little context for this workshop. It has to be a bit of a broad overview because some of you are probably looking to write your transfer application essays, which is very different than writing those short essays for the scholarships at TCC, which is a little different than writing them for the big university scholarships. These are all different contexts. Hopefully most of the advice that I have will apply to most of those situations. If you are planning to transfer, you will have to write about yourself. And you'll have to write different essays because the colleges have specific prompts that they give that they want you to address specific things about you, and they're going to be different. So you're going to end up writing more than one of these. But once you write one, you can always borrow pieces of that one for other essays. The point is to get started on it. Also, so I don't forget, we also have ways to pay at TCC. It's one of these awesome events unique to TCC, and the dates of everything are on the back. And this can give you more information about getting money for school. And it's not just for TCC, it's for university too. So money for school, find out how. They have lots of different workshops, including a repeat of this one. So if you want to get one of those flyers at the end when you turn in your evaluation, that would be great. So let's get started, and then I hope to have time for questions at the end. If I don't, I'm in the Writing and Tutoring Center in Building 7 upstairs. So if you ever want to, come on in. If you ever want to get some more information, you can come see me there. Just email me. Did I put my email anywhere? No. I'll try to provide that at the end. And then we also have a great group of tutors who help with personal statements. I think it's under, when you go in to make an appointment, I think it says scholarship essays / transfer essays or something along those lines, but you'll find it. And you can make an appointment to have someone take a look at your personal statement if you're worried about it. We won't proofread, but we'll help you with clarity and kind of making sure it makes sense. Okay, so one thing people often think is that when you need to do a piece of writing, that you should be able to just sit down and write it. And if it doesn't come freely from you right from the beginning, that you're not a good writer, or that it's a hopeless case, or you should just take whatever comes out and just call it that because you're not capable of anything else. And so the first thing that I want to express is the whole process before you even start writing your essay. You can set yourself up for success right from the beginning, before you even sit down to start writing. And then when you start writing, you want to let yourself have as much drafting time as you possibly can have. Just don't sit down and expect word one to come out of your fingers and then to stop typing and the last word will come out of your fingers, and that's just not the way it works. Okay, first thing, read directions carefully. I read so many essays in the STAR system that did not respond to the prompt. And that's people being nervous, I think. Or writing one essay and then just pasting it into all of the categories. You can apply for more than one of the scholarships, and depending on what it is you're getting money for. And you want to be careful to look at what the directions say. What is the prompt that's being, that they want you to respond to? They take that really seriously. The prompt is what they want you to talk about. So if you ignore it and just do a general statement, the first thing that the reviewers are going to say is they didn't pay attention to what we asked for. And there's no better way to be dismissed. So read your directions really carefully. And please interrupt me at any point if you want clarification, if you have a question that pops into your head, please stop me. It's nice to have some background, especially for transfer. Specific requirements for each statement and some general information about the schools that you're applying for. Know something about them. Know their values, their mission statements, things like that. Schools take those so seriously. At TCC, we value equity, community, and learning. Those are in our mission statement and our college-wide learning outcomes. Colleges take those seriously. Know something about the university or the college. And if it's a scholarship, let's say you're going into the nursing program and they're asking about geriatric medicine. Are you interested in geriatric medicine? And it's a scholarship given by an organization that's interested in geriatric medicine. What should you know something about? Geriatric medicine. It was surprising how many I read that had made no mention of it. Where I couldn't tell what their perspectives were or why they were even interested in this scholarship. So do some research. Dig around a little bit. Look at examples. There are so many examples, and Google is useful sometimes, and this is one place where it's very useful. Type in sample scholarship application essays or sample transfer personal statement essays. I mean, you can use a variety of different keywords to see what you come up with. What are you looking for, though, when you're looking at examples?
Oh, I just had a quick question.
Sure.
About when we do examples. When we do the essay, are we grading it for the college, or are we that we're going into? Like
Mm-hmm.
they have to choose us.
Mm-hmm.
If they like our essay, or are we grading it for this college?
Well, it depends on what you're here for. So some people here are applying for scholarships through the STAR system for our foundation scholarships here, which have opened up. So you can apply right now. This is the time. Others might be wanting to transfer to UW. So they have to include that scholarship essay with their application to UW. And it is one of the major pieces that they look at to choose the people to enter that college. Yeah. So what would you be looking for in examples? Well, good examples, also bad examples, although they're harder to come by. But good examples, but what makes something good? Like, what are you looking for? Yes?
I think part of it, if you look at a good example, it's kind of how it's laid out.
Yes.
Because you want to make it easy for the person reading it to like you. And so if you read it and you're like, oh, I like this essay, you can look at kind of what the outline is and then try to glean something from that in your own.
Exactly. So you are seeing something you like. If you read it and you like it, it's interesting to you, figure out, why is this interesting to me? Is it because they grabbed me? Is it because it's really well organized and clearly written, that it has a focus to it? What kind of language are they using? Am I comfortable using that kind of language? So what should you not try to get from this example? Yeah. Don't use the example. I can, because I'm an English instructor, I can see a shift in tone and style in a student's essay so easily. I could just see, and sometimes students will cut and paste and in a different font, and so that makes it even more clear. You're not going to do that, but you're also not going to cut and paste from someone else's. They want to hear from you. They really want to hear your voice. So examples are to get inspired, but not to grab juicy sentences from. It's so tempting because everything's electronic, but just avoid that. Don't plagiarize. Brainstorming. So there is a place for getting some stuff down on paper that is not necessarily in an essay form to start getting your brain juices flowing. And you're not going to be able to see the actual maps because they're just examples to look at for the visual. So concept mapping and free writing. I mean, some people find free writing real accessible. You just sit there and you just spew everything out that you can think of about yourself. Everything. You tell the story of you. Your schooling, where you came from, what your challenges have been, how you've done in school, what your favorite hobbies are, what your favorite everything that you can think of. And then take that big piece of whatever it is that you've done and pull cool stuff out to use. But I have found over the years of teaching that that's really detrimental to some people with real linear brains. That they get stuck with that and they don't know how to get out of it ever again. They end up turning it in, actually. So sometimes outlines or concept mapping help people who have a more linear way of seeing things. And that is, write the word travel. And then see if you're somebody that's traveled and that's where you've gotten a lot of your inspiration in your life, do some mapping on that. Travel, Italy, you know, and some great experience that you had, and then start the juices flowing that way. Like if you're going into a transfer program into psychology and you really want to get into the psychology department, put psychology and then start mapping. What are the things that I want to learn? What are the things that I find fascinating about psychology? This is not the essay process yet. This is just getting your juices flowing, your ideas pumping, thinking about yourself and your background and your future and all that. You're going to organize later, you're going to write later, but just getting something down. Some people do that whole thing here. I have a tendency to be like that. I do a lot of thinking. So sometimes I don't produce anything, but I'm still brainstorming. I'm just doing it in my brain. Be willing to draft and draft and draft and draft and draft and draft. Be willing to throw things away, start over. Be willing to dump whole paragraphs, whole parts of your life into the garbage. You have to just be not married to a draft until it actually is saying what you want it to say. I wanted to pull those students out of that system and just say, Joe, you should have spent more time on this. You really shot yourself in the foot by not spending any time. I could tell when a student just kind of typed it into the slot, didn't cut and paste it from a Word doc, didn't work on it for any period of time, just sort of went, well, I guess I really, really want this scholarship. It's really important to me to get some money. I really need it. Obviously they hadn't put any time into drafting an essay. We'll talk about what an essay is in just a minute. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you going to give us this handout at the end?
Yeah, if you know the attendance sheet that was roaming, oh, here it is. What you could do is you could easily put your email address on here for me. I'll just send you the PowerPoint. But all this information is in my trusty packet here. It's just not visual like that. I don't like PowerPoints that have lots of words on them because everyone just reads then. So, what's interesting about you? This is part of your brainstorm because this is what they want to know. You need to stand out from everyone else. I need to remember who you are. When I'm sitting in the room with the reviewers for the scholarship application and we're all talking about the essays we've read, we want to be like, oh, you remember that one? Yeah. Oh, that was somebody that really spoke to me. Ding, money, yes.
Okay, so I get confused with this in particular because I don't think it's interesting because it's me.
Exactly. She said she doesn't think it's interesting because it's me. We don't find ourselves that fascinating. At least most of us don't.
I mean, I'm used to whatever oh my God, that's profound. It's like, oh yeah, I just had to do that.
So some of the process here might have to be getting your ego boosted up a little bit, or allowing yourself to see yourself from the third person, to see yourself from outside, and trust that someone's going to be interested in your story. Someone's going to be interested in what you need, what you're trying to say. Something about you is going to be fascinating. Every single person has something different that happened to them or that they've done, or some quality that is different than everybody else. This is the hardest part of this writing, is figuring out this answer. What is interesting? I ask questions like, have you overcome something? And no issue should be just disregarded right off the bat. We'll talk a little bit about sensitive issues in a second, but really dig in. And sometimes it helps to just go chronologically back through your life. Some of you are awfully young, so that's not going to be a long process. But just looking back, what did I do, during my junior year of high school that I know that some service learning, some volunteerism, something that I did that taught me something about myself, something. A unique adventure or an experience that you've had. And I'll tell you, every time I talk to somebody else, I always feel like my life is so boring compared to theirs. Then I'll talk about something about me, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, you sing opera? Wow, that's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, but you've been to Turkey. And so we are, competing to see who's more interesting, and we're voting for the other person. You're going to have to, in this situation, just like in a resume and those kinds of things, you have to just pull that stuff out of yourself and trust that it is interesting. Have you done something that you're proud of? Do you have a special skill, something that you've learned that sets you apart? Do you speak another language? Have you gone and done any mission work? Have you done anything at all that, or just helped at your grandma's nursing home? I mean, any little nugget like that is something about you that tells us something about you. It tells us a story about your character, why you're here at TCC, or why you're trying to move on to a career path. It tells us something. Some people say, I have done nothing and I've never done anything ever, ever, ever. I've had no experiences. I've traveled nowhere. I've done no volunteer work. I am a blank slate. So then that's where you move toward your roles. Who are you in your family? What are your character? What are your characteristics? And can you give an example of your self-discipline, your courage, your honesty? Is honesty the most important thing to you in your world? Is there someone in your world who you admire deeply, who you would talk about? If you haven't had the adventures, what adventures do you want to have, and why? So sometimes you're kind of having to project out. And again, the prompt that you're responding to will tailor this a bit. Sometimes they will ask you, who's someone you admire? And tell us why, and why that's important to your future. So you want to probably do some brainstorming on this anyway. This is specifically for scholarships that are for a specific path, career path, or a degree program or a particular college. You kind of need to do a little investigating as to why you're heading in the direction you're heading. Why are you interested in the HSP program? Why are you interested in nursing? Why are you interested in engineering? Why are you interested in mathematics? Why are you interested in psychology? I just worked with one of my staff members who is applying for the master's program in marriage and family, psychology of marriage and family at PLU. So she's having to sit and dig into her past and her brain to figure out, why am I applying for this? Why do I want to get a therapy master's? Why? What's important to me about that? And she realized it's serving people at risk. So it's asking yourself some questions and having solid answers. This is a lot of soul searching you have to do, because what we can tell as readers is a genuine voice, an inspired voice versus someone who's like, okay, I have to answer this stupid question. Well, I'll just, we can tell. And we want to give money to people who are going to finish, who have that drive and passion. We want to give them entrance to a university because they have that drive and passion. We don't want to give entrance to someone who's kind of half-heartedly. This is a summary slide. What's your brand? Who are you? What's your motto? What would your logo look like? Think of this in your head. And then this is what you're ending up writing. What makes you unique? What makes you look different than everybody else? This is all brainstorming. This could look like 50 pages of mess if I was doing it in a brainstorm fashion, my own kind of free writing. It's pages and pages of me just yammering on. No one else ever has to see this. This is private stuff. You're going to pull from it, though, to make your essay. I think I'm just repeating myself. Do you see why I'm repeating myself several times about this point? As some of you came in late, I was a reviewer just for the very first time this year for the STARS applications, or scholarships. So I got to read about 550 to 600 essays, scholarship essays. We ended up doing a lot of reading. And that is the number one thing I want to get across to people, is that you've got to stand out a little bit. It's kind of a balance between hooking your reader and standing out and writing a clear, organized, well-structured essay that we don't have to. There was one that was just, I can't remember. I went on and on and on, and it was almost like one sentence, but it was just one paragraph block. It was also in purple. And it was just this big, and it was really inspiring, but I could not follow her to save my life. Every time I would get to the next section, I couldn't figure out what the point was, and that's heartbreaking too. So she was really unique, but she also didn't write an organized essay. So I guess that's the balance. Oops. Now let's talk about the writing. Okay, as you're brainstorming, one of the things you want to do is get those examples flowing. This is going to be the meat of your essay, are your examples. If you say you're honest, tell me how I know that you're honest. Give me an example. Anecdote is another way of seeing this. A story. Story writing, personal statement writing is story writing. It's closer to writing a personal narrative than it is writing an academic essay. It's writing about yourself. It's very personal writing. It's I writing. It's not like writing an argument paper for English 102. Opinions and statements. And I have a lot of details about this in the packet. You just want to avoid, and I haven't talked about this yet, but this is where it gets kind of sticky. If you have some really strong opinions about some big issues, this is probably not the place or the time to voice those. It's not the perfect venue for voicing your feelings about capital punishment, prayer in school, hot button topics, unless they are critical for the program that you're entering. Like you think that geriatric medicine should grow because there's not enough support for aging patients in this country. That makes sense to me as a topic if geriatric medicine is the area you're going into, because everyone in that area is going to agree with you and think of you as a community member who's coming in. Oh yes, this person knows what we're struggling with. General statements. When I say statements, what I mean is, here's an example. I am passionate about empowering women of color. Now, it's not wrong to say that, except that, what's it missing? Yeah, the next thing I should read should be an example of that. Like, my own experience growing up in the projects of Brooklyn with constant limits set on me by other people has given me the passion of helping other women like me. This is a real statement that I took that from. So if you just stick with a statement, it's not personal, and it's just an opinion, or it's just a statement with the example, with the personal touch, it becomes who you are in the essay. So every time you make a statement, back it up with an example. So sometimes the most exciting or interesting thing about you is sort of a negative experience. War, serving in a war where you had some negative experiences, things that kept you out of school, divorce, things like that are sometimes the most interesting thing about us. How do we talk about those? What if that is the thing that you want to talk about because it's the reason that you don't have money? Or it's the reason that you need money? Or it's the reason that you're back to school? These are two statements from two different essays. It's my ex-husband's fault that I didn't finish my AA degree the first time around. So what does that say about the writer? Yeah, not taking responsibility, bitter. And it might be true, but it doesn't put her in a great light. But how about, I am proud to have made it back 2 years later, or 2 years after my divorce to finish my AA despite difficult times in my personal life. That's owning it. Still, it's difficult. Still mentions the divorce. Push out. There you go. But it owns it. It's saying, I'm the one who didn't make it through, and yes, it had something to do with my divorce, but now I am moving forward. So ownership. So it's spin, I guess you could call this spinning a little bit. Or we could just see it as thinking positively while we're trying to get money for school or transfer. I say focus on the past because I read a lot of essays that it asks about your personal experiences and then the person only talks about what they want to do. So be sure when you read the prompt, is it asking you to talk about things that have happened to you, your experiences in the past? And if it is, don't project forward only, because then we know nothing about you except your aspirations. Think about, again, the prompts. More and more so, I can't give this as like a blanket presentation because there are so many different questions they might ask. I was going to make a slide at one point that just had a bunch of the different ones that they ask, and I think I probably could still do that. But they differ so much, so you really have to do the groundwork of doing the brainstorming so that you have this big fodder, a big pail of stuff to draw from. So every time you come to a new kind of prompt, one school asks this and another school asks that, you can pull more from the bucket. So this essay that you wrote may work for UW, but Wazoo, oh gosh, they're asking about this whole other thing. I need to pull from that big bucket of stuff that I brainstormed so that I can plop some new stuff in there. It's great. What I have for, let's say, even when I'm writing letters of recommendation, I have usually versions for each person, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, PLU, UPS, UW, each place that I'm sending them so that I can tailor them. You got to tailor. Again, emphasizing what you emphasize. Yes, sometimes your tragedies are important to emphasize because they are the reason that you're back to school or the reason that you need money. Spin those positively, but if you can, focus on the positive things in your life, the positive roles that you play. Let's say a single mom, instead of fixating on her divorce, let's say in the essay, if she fixes on what life she's providing her children by going back to school, more inspiring, a more inspiring story. Oops. I love the sandwich metaphor for talking about writing, so now let's kind of look at the structure a little bit. This applies to a paragraph, and this applies to an essay. You can use the sandwich metaphor for any kind of writing. And it's a little different than an academic essay that has a thesis, although you still have something that focuses your essay. And again, remember, you're answering their question. But you can think of it as a sandwich. And when I read a sandwich-like essay, I get so happy because it makes it so easy to read. For readers, we just expect to be hooked in, told what's going to come, given a nice example, and then have them come back to explain it. So that's what it is. Jump right in with the hook. In this kind of writing, this is where you're going to tell us the main thing that you're going to focus on, what experience it is that you're going to talk about, whatever nugget that you've pulled that you realize is going to be the thing that you're going to use. And some people use a quote that inspires them. Some people I've known used somebody, someone famous who inspires them. But it's something that grabs your reader, whether it's bringing them right into the experience that you had in Afghanistan, or if it's bringing them into a day in the life of a single mom, or it's bringing them into a moment of volunteer work that you had at a nursing home, or it's bringing them right into the psychology class that you took that suddenly woke you up to what you wanted to do when you move forward in your career. Whatever that is, it's the hook that gets us, and it's the focus. And then developing the example. And then the thing that everybody leaves off that makes everybody so sad when we're reading them. And that is, why is this important to us as readers? Why should we give you the scholarship money because of what you just told us? Why should we let you into the university because of what you just told us? You just told us a wonderful story about yourself, and it's very empowering, but the last thing I should read is why that should lead me as your reviewer, selection committee, whatever we are, to give you the money, the entrance. Well, yeah, now let's talk about that for a second. The 5-paragraph essay, kind of an old model. You may not have 3 examples. That's okay. There's nothing that says 3 examples is the norm. And this might be a paragraph all by itself. In the STARS system, most of the essays are paragraphs. They're not essays. They're one chunk. And so you might have, this might be a sentence, this might be a couple more sentences, and this would be the last sentence. Still a sandwich. I like to see this as the meat because it's like the meat of an essay. I love that metaphor. It's kind of it's the development, it's the example, it's the real life details. But the conclusion is different than the meat because it's a broader thing. It holds the meat together with how you started your essay. The buns should match. I hope that makes sense to you. I love metaphors. They don't always work for everybody. And it works for me for any kind of writing. Like, my students will be like, they'll turn something in and I'll say, this is all meat. Where are the buns? Or this is all bun, where's the meat? If they just write a bunch of stuff without any examples. Oh, go ahead.
Restating your, what you said, like
Mhm.
when your teachers teach you,
Mhm.
okay, here's your thesis statement, you're going to restate it in the concluding
Mhm.
sentence.
I don't like that as much because restating is not doing its job as much as if you see it as and why is this important?
Okay.
To me, that's the most important moment in the essay. Except for the first moment. Because if they don't read past the first paragraph and all the important stuff's at the end, this is what, okay, so I'm putting on my transfer hat here. Transfer application essays. Those are longer. They're real essays. Hook them immediately. The most exciting moment in your essay should be the first sentence. Grab them in. And I like reading them where they're actual experiences, like being dropped into your life. And with really great detail. Just drop me into your life, hook me, I can't stop reading. If you start off with, it's really, really important to me to go to University of Washington to become a blah, 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 blah. And they're reading 400 of these, they're not going to read on. You want to grab them. and hook them with a quote, an experience, a metaphor, an observation, something that kind of is the tone of your whole essay. And that's going to depend on every single one of you being unique. I mean, you're going to have your unique take on yourself and what you're going to write about. Yes?
So I read a whole bunch of scholarship essays last year when
Yes.
I was highlighting. And it made me laugh because I could tell every single person who got someone to help them did the sandwich
Did this.
thing. And they did like this very visual thing in the first paragraph where you felt their life. So they were helping foster children
Yes.
in Uganda or whatever. And there was one point where I thought, I know what's happening to me. They're hooking me right now. I know it. But I couldn't stop
Yes.
having an
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
And those were the people that we gave all the most points to. We did a point system there. So
And we do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when they vet it, we're vetting, with our little markers and our notes. Grab us, and yes, it's an obvious
And I was
tool.
laughing, I was like, oh, because I could tell, you went to the writing center. You could point out who went to the writing center. But I was laughing because I was like, you're hooking me right now. I know.
You're hooking me. I feel it happening.
But I'm still trying or whatever.
Right, but I'm still going. I can't stop. And then you can also tell when somebody actually took some time to organize their essay. Now, if it's a paragraph, you're not really doing a lot of this. But if it's a full essay, you're going to need to find some way to organize it. And it's going to depend on you and the kind of experiences you're using. If you have tons of experience that you want to share, you've got to organize yourself and cut stuff out. And I guess I would also say which one you choose depends on how much experience you've had. Let's say if you have a real long life and lots of cool things that will help us see why you should get the money or why you should be at this university, you could do by time, chronologic. Or by different experiences that illustrate your point. If you don't have a lot of experiences, maybe the characteristics you find most important in yourself. So what you use, and look at samples of these, because you'll find a sample for every single one of these. Every single one of these, you're going to see something out there that is, chronologic, or somebody did it by, I read one by courses, and that was really interesting. They were trying to get into a master's program, and they walked us through a day in the life of an undergraduate in the psychology realm, and it was sort of the day that she realized that that's what she wanted to do for the rest of her life. And it was kind of like having her eyes open more and more as she walked through that day of courses. That's pretty creative. I think that you're all going to find one out there that you can model yours after if you're really nervous about this. Find one that you like the strategies they use, then you use your own life in that. They'll be excited about depth, not breadth. And this, oh boy, do I want to tell every single person who's going to do the STARS essays this. Do not give us a list. Vet your own experiences. Find the most essential, interesting thing to help you and really give it to us, detailed. Don't give us everything you've ever done, ever, in a big long list, and then repeat it through the entire process. Most of them actually ask for 3 or 4 or 5 different essays if you're doing the scholarship one. So you have to write about this, and then you have to write about that, and then you have to write about that, and then you have to write about that. Don't repeat yourself. Don't repeat yourself. Do not cut and paste yourself, ever. Just don't do that. Write separate essays. They might touch upon the same experience, but you're going to look at them from different lenses depending on the question. Don't cut and paste your entire essay over and over again. And we always want depth. Every single one of us that we were talking about these essays, we remembered the ones that were stories. We did not remember the ones that were lists. They just leave your brain. You know how that is true if you read a big list? It just doesn't grab you the same way a story does. That's a human thing. Here's some more nitty-gritty stuff just to warn you about. I say grab them with a hook, but not a cliche. Not my life is a roller coaster. You can probably think of other ones that people use. A fun metaphor is fun if it's yours that you've developed, that's unique to you, but not one that everybody uses. No slang, like whatever. Use your most formal voice, but your voice. Don't try to use moreovers and things that are not natural to you. Transitional words, it's very clear when someone's using one that doesn't feel right to them. And not conceited statements, but confident modesty. I will work really hard to succeed. It's important to me. Me statements. And then just stay out of religion and politics unless it's relevant to the scholarship / university, or it's, and if it is, like if you did a mission trip that was really essential to why you're going into, let's say, nursing, you can talk about that, but don't let it steer off too far into that realm. Just kind of stay a little objective in that respect, because you don't know who your readers are. You don't know their leanings. Use your voice. Use your best voice. Right. Use the voice that is natural to you, but it's not the one that you would use with your pals. There's a lot of informality in those essays that I found really inappropriate, considering what they were writing and how big. I just kept wanting to say, high stakes, people, this is money. You know, step up. Use your academic voice. Have other people read it, like I say here. Use an editing proofreading checklist. I have a couple of tools for you in here, as well as some intros and conclusions to look at. Use a checklist to make sure you've checked for everything, and I mean everything. Don't have misspellings. You need perfect spelling, perfect punctuation, perfect spacing, perfect margins, perfect heading. For those, the ones that you send out to universities, perfect. Don't let them toss it out because it has a coffee stain on it. Don't let them toss it out because it's in 10-point font and squishing on the sides of the margins, or 14-point font in the smack in the middle of it. They want 12-point, Times New Roman, simple, or some default. Yeah.
It says 11 to 12, 2 to 3 pages. What is your recommendation as far as that goes?
11 is just harder to read, and it makes people's eyes kind of glaze. I don't know why, but it's true. But if they say it, I mean, I guess I would take their word, but I would be more concise and use 12. It's easier to read on screen. Most of them will be reading things on the screen. I mean, a lot of the stuff is now automated. It's on a screen. Margins, heading, everything just perfect. Paper should be unwrinkled. Have multiple people read it. Ask them specific questions. Is this clear? Do you get a sense of me? Does every sentence make sense? Does it all flow well? Am I interesting? And yeah, just again, font size, type in color, paper in color. It's not in purple. It's not in italics. It's not in Comic Sans. It's not creative like that. I've seen it all. Oh, and if you're sending it to university, send the right one to the right university. I did that. I did that, unfortunately, as a letter of recommendation writer. I wrote the wrong ones, sent the wrong ones to the wrong universities for somebody else. Oh, it was horrible. Oh, and this is true for the scholarships. When I would read one that was written for the wrong scholarship, they pasted in something, let's use geriatric medicine again, when it was supposed to be radiology. No, because we are expecting you to be careful and really mindful. And that looks like, what does that look like on my end? Shoddy, lazy, inattentive, not that serious about it. I don't really want that money. Final reminders. This comes, I've added this slide after doing my work on that committee. Be honest, but not overly confessional. This is not the place to complain about your family members. It's not the place to tell us the worst dirty secrets of your life. Focus on the introduction, because that's, if it's a long essay, that's what they're going to read to see if they want to read more. Demonstrate, don't just describe. So examples, 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 real life. Bring us in, plop us into your life. Explain the why, not just the what. I think it's really important. I think geriatric medicine is really important. Why? Focus on the most interesting and unique aspects of you. Remember who you're talking to. Most likely an academic audience of people who teach English. Or other things. The committee that does the scholarships is a wide range of people, all including people on the board of the foundation and teachers and staff members and advisors. It's everybody. Yes?
So what if you're talking about something, like you said, highly personal? Maybe you had like a major medical issue and that's your example, but you don't want it all the way out there. How would you address that?
So is the medical issue important? Is it something that is the reason that you're in school? If it's not important to the reason you should get money or then don't talk about it at all. Like this, a unique thing about you, if it's really awkward, the only reason you're including it is because it's the only thing you can think of about yourself, or it is essential to why you're here and why you're pursuing what you're pursuing. A woman taking care of her dying mother, and that's why she's a nurse. Very painful, very personal, essential to her story. I'm trying to think of another example of one of these kinds of things. War experience has been one that has been tricky, but it has been very powerful. And then we have a whole set of people writing them for money that's specifically for people rehabilitating after being in prison. How do they talk about their experience? They talk about where they're going, how that helped them see where they want to take their life. Do you see how that's a positive, use anything negative as a springboard to positive. This experience in prison was so important to me. It made me really see who I am as a person and what kind of person I want to be in the world. Yeah. What do you think of this statement? This is the start of an essay. Ever since I was young, I have always wanted to be a doctor. I've always enjoyed helping people, and I want to do it for a living. In particular, I would like to do medical research where my work would have a positive effect for many people. So what are its strengths? Does it have strengths?
Yes, clear.
Very clear. It's easy to read. I know what he wants to do for a living. Kind of.
Has a lot of details in a small amount of space.
We get some, yeah, it's detailed, but it's more like good statements. Like we have a lot of information. Not detail, but information's here, yeah. And it's organized, right? What's missing? Do we know this guy? Can I feel him in my head? Well, I don't mean that. Erase that. Cut that out. No. No. Can I plot myself into his life and see who he is? What do I want to see more of? Yep. Hand. Sorry.
I think with this one, the reason why it's not as good is because you can just take that and it's so broad and so general. It's easy to just take it and it shouldn't be
Yes.
easily plagiarized.
Yes.
Oh, I can just apply that to everybody in the room that wants to be a doctor.
Yeah, exactly. I like that you said that. It's very boilerplate. It's anybody. And it's so easily plagiarized because really anybody going into medical school could say this. Oops. Microphone fell off. So it has no personal qualities. It's a good start because it's a good organization, and I feel like I could just plop my examples right in here. Some people work really well that way, and maybe that's you. Write the statements first, then fill in with detail. It's kind of like putting the sandwich together first with the bread, and then getting the meat into it. I'm out of time. Hate that. Let me make sure that you get one of these. Questions that have come up. I know this is very broad, just a bunch of advice. I really recommend that if you want a personal touch, that you bring a draft or the big mess that you end up making first to the Writing and Tutoring Center and work with somebody there. I have lots of tutors with lots, let's see, give you one. With lots and lots of experience reading these. You just start passing those down. Who would be they love reading these, by the way. This is pleasurable reading because it's personal and it's fun to get people to talk about themselves. It's really fun to look at and read. So my advice is to get started immediately. I don't care when your due dates are. Now, do them now. Get started on the writing. Yes?
You had mentioned there's maybe sensitive information that it would be like a life example
Mm-hmm.
use, but it's sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So how would we work with something like that?
With a tutor?
In our life.
Well, I would say a tutor is usually a pretty good confidential, that's a good confidential setting. If you don't want to show a tutor, I don't know that you want it in your essay because you're going to have 50 people reading it later.
Yeah, but the 50 people won't see who you are, will they ever?
Oh, good
I'm asking for a
point. Well, now that,
What you're touching on, confidentiality?
the thing is, yeah, I see your point.
embarrassing.
I see your point.
Yes.
But now that you guys, the system probably has pictures and things in it from our system is now very visual.
It's not like something you can just always go up and, okay, yeah, this is what I did and what I was.
I think put in a
But now, this
like,
is,
Yeah, putting a positive note, maybe not including the details that are truly the ones that cause the most embarrassment, and then just, I guess, maybe just putting yourself out there so that you can get it, or having people work with you, like in your smaller circle, like having your friends work with you on it rather than somebody, a stranger.